What's going on, everyone? Happy Friday. Welcome into another edition of Final Whistle. This week, I have another guest, and as always, I usually have guests. So this week, I have Anthony Pacifico, one of my Seton Hall best friends. He is a mental health counselor in training who also studies sports and exercise psychology. Anthony, thanks for taking some time out of your day to come on to Final Whistle.
What's going on, Blaine? I'm happy to be here. We've been talking sports together for a very long time, since probably the day we met. It's great to kind of show the world what our conversations are like about sports.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get too off topic, honestly. And if you guys didn't know, Anthony was actually the co-host with me for the season one. So he knows his stuff. Don't worry. You can go back and listen to those season one episodes. Just a smidge, he knows.
A tiny bit, nothing crazy.
Yeah. So Anthony, I know mental health has been a real problem that we've seen showcased this year with COVID in the year of 2020. And with you studying sports psychology and exercise psychology, et cetera, what does the toll look like, do you think, from athletes this year, especially trying to play, dealing with sometimes playing in bubbles without their families, not seeing them for long periods of time? Like in college athletes, they're pretty much self-quarantining on campus, stuff like that.
Sure. So I'm actually interning right now at a college counseling center, and they are a Division II school. And it seems like the hardest part about this whole thing, the main incorporation of it, is people with last year eligibilities losing their last years of eligibilities, right? What is your identity when you leave your sport? Is it you're going professional? Because we all know the percentages of that, the very slim chance, right? What are you doing outside your sport to make up for that, to subsidize for that? I think when you go to some of like the larger universities, even some of the universities that bring in international students, or students just from across the country, you're looking at that emotional toll from that. You're looking at, you have to quarantine and be in a form of isolation while you're on campus. So you're not seeing your teammates that much, or it's remote other than practice. Some of your peers, your students, your classes, and you're not really close to your family. Those are your social supports, right? Those are probably your most important social supports, minus your teammates and your coaches and whatnot. But I think athletes are really losing out just on that emotional connection, that face-to-face contact. And I think it's hard. I think in a way, you mentioned the bubble, like the end, talking about the NBA bubble. I think while it's hard emotionally to be away from your family for X amount of time, not discrediting that at all, but I think being there, being in a way isolated with like your sport fraternity, if you will, I think it really kind of invigorated players in a sense to really kind of go back to kind of the K through 12 playing that sport, kind of just having fun with it again. Like you saw the NBA, you see some of those players, joking around with each other and whatnot. I don't know, some positivity out of it.
And they ended up becoming the cheerleaders too. It was kind of interesting to see. As soon as there was a big play, they're the ones that were jumping up and down, going crazy, pointing at players if they're getting dunked on, just stuff, head-to-head taps, all that.
Kind of like the video from Monmouth a few years ago. I think it was Monmouth. I think someone made a dunk or something.
Monmouth player,
they went crazy after. Yeah, that's exactly what they were doing in the bubble. So a little bit of positive light to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you think, from a mental standpoint, how much more difficult this year has been for athletes? If you can give it on a scale from 1 to 10.
Well, I think your expectation never changes. You're still expected to do your best to play this high functioning role, to be the best athlete you can be, but you're not getting the supports that you're used to getting. Just plain and simple, you're not getting the face-to-face interaction. I mean, like you and I would probably we would probably do this in person if we had the ability to. I would, I don't want to necessarily put a number to it, but it's significantly higher. I think because you look at some of these athletes, they would fly their families to their away games, or they would get them this. You're not doing that anymore. You got to FaceTime, you got to phone call them, email, whatever. It's just definitely not the same. But the expectation of how they should play, that's not changed.
Yeah, and then I know we've started to see fans in the stands, especially in some NFL areas. Soccer, MLS had fans. for significant portions in some states and even in college football. Do you think that mindset started to change a little bit and it got more to a normal feel, even though it was a limited capacity of fans being in attendance? Do you think that helped them in a mental health way?
I do. I think having that support from afar relationship is it's good, not great. It was they were working within the limitations, but I think it definitely excited players and athletes to, go back to that feeling of, hey, like the NBA, the NFL, college sports is a family. Your team's a family, your family's family, like that. And I think opening that door just a little bit, just filled that void while it could.
Absolutely. And then let's transition. You're a big Philly guy, diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan. If anyone didn't know, my man is a diehard Eagles fan, and he is trying to dig himself out of a massive hole with his Eagles this year.
So just before Blaine asked me the question, just a little tidbit about that. When Philadelphia won the Super Bowl, I dragged this kid to the parade in Philadelphia.
I lost a bet, ladies and gentlemen. I told him we bet the Super Bowl. I said if the Eagles won, he was like, if the Eagles win, you're taking me to the parade. And I ended up folding there and having to go. Great parade, by the way. Parade was great.
Lots of fun.
I got no complaints about the parade. I still lost the bet though, which hurt even more, bro. But all right, back to our conversation here about Philadelphia. And there's been Jalen Hurts has been now named the starter for the second consecutive week. He actually played relatively well against New Orleans. It looked like the team rallied around him. And, this is now people are saying this is the second time this has happened with the whole Nick Foles situation where the team rallies around him. Carson Wentz doesn't run the offense. I know you're a huge Carson Wentz advocate. He's got a North Dakota State jersey of Carson Wentz, so he's a diehard. And people have now been saying that potentially Carson Wentz was affected mentally with the selection of Jalen Hurts in the second round. Just give me your overall sense of the Eagles and how this situation's been handled, and then giving me a little bit of insight about what you think about Carson Wentz having a mentally and physically strained by Jalen Hurts being a potential looming in the background.
Yeah, so actually, I think Jalen Hurts becoming the starter, especially going forward for the rest of the season, I think it's a great thing, but I don't think it's a great thing in the sense of a quarterback controversy. I think people are really trying to make a story out of nothing. And this comes from the top-down organizational standpoint. Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, was very open about saying, look, if we're going to play like crap, start Jalen Hurts. And when you say that, you're not saying Carson Wentz is – I mean, yes, Carson Wentz is playing abysmal. He's having the worst season of his career. But doesn't every quarterback have like that 1 year that you can pinpoint and it's like, oh, they didn't play so great. So, but Jeffrey Lurie's looking at it like this. Evaluate the talent on your team. There's no reason for you to win the division. There's no reason to risk your quarterback getting hurt, especially on a terrible injury-ridden offensive line. Evaluate your talent. I mean, it's something that they should be doing regularly, and they're not. They waited to do it now. So, I don't know, Blaine. What do you think?
I mean, personally, for me, I feel like the controversy will become inevitable, especially if you guys run the rest of the table. And you're all three, the rest of your games, all three of them are very winnable. You have Arizona in there, you have Washington. I'm a Washington guy, and I know we don't even know who plays quarterback on a week-to-week basis. So, I mean, all three of those games that you guys still have remaining on the schedule are definitely winnable, and then being able to showcase an ability. But from what I've seen though, Doug Peterson called a completely different game plan than what he would have called it for Carson Wentz. It was completely different. He utilized the run game extremely at a higher rate than usually. His run rate was way higher. You have a quarterback that has significant mobility. You're a Sooner guy. He's a former Sooner. You know Jalen Hurts very well too. So it's just trying to figure out what the balance is. But if they end up running the table, they've got a significant problem. And I'm a huge Dan Orlovsky guy, so are you. And he was saying this week, if they end up running the table, the trade almost becomes inevitable. if they can try and get rid of get the money off of his hands.
You're right. At that point, it becomes it's conceptualized around the dollars and cents, right? If you have a guy, Jalen Hurts, who plays well with his team, and runs the table, fine, because the team's only going to get better, hypothetically speaking, next year with a healthier offensive line, healthier secondary, sure. But this goes down to the organization. This is what it comes down to. It comes down to Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman. So the first thing with Doug Peterson, I've been saying this since Nick Foles, right? They dumbed down the offense, and that's why Nick Foles accelerated. You know, we've watched Nick Foles in Chicago. We watched Nick Foles in Jacksonville. And it's not that he's not a capable quarterback. He's a capable starting quarterback. But Doug Peterson worked to the strength of the quarterback. And I will get on to this about Carson Wentz's mental and physical strain. But Doug Peterson is asking Carson Wentz to turn a pile of nothing into a pile of something, where he's asking Jalen Hurts and Nick Foles. He's gonna give them a little bit more credit, a little bit more of an advantage. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that for Foles and Hurts, but not for Wentz? And then the next thing is Howie Roseman, the GM, right? He's great when it comes to contracts, right? Phenomenal job. Doesn't hit on his picks. He's been around for close to 20 years. Only a handful. He's great at bringing in free agents from other teams, but where are you doing with draft picks? You're not helping your team. If I'm Jeffrey Lurie, I'm sitting both of them in a room and saying, one of you is getting fired after this meeting. Explain to me why you should keep your job. Howie Roseman is going to lose. I'm glad you're great with your contracts. You can get somebody else to do that. Doug Peterson won you a Super Bowl with this talent, with this aging talent. Doug's going to win that fight.
Mm-hmm. I think that's valid. I wouldn't be surprised if Carson Wentz is also sitting in that room, though, too. You could have all three of them there. You take two out of the three. And you just say something's got to give. And I mean, like, and Howie Roseman's credit, Jalen Reagor, their first round pick. I finally saw him actually make a play in a game last week.
He was great.
It was crazy. Who knew? Who knew that Blaine, he played football?
But Blaine,
I mean, he was a great collegiate player at TCU. You couldn't even add an APB out for him. APB, you couldn't find him.
Blaine, you know college football more than, I would say 95% of the people I know, right? You've seen Jalen Reagor's tape. You know he's good. He's great on special teams as well.
Yeah.
But you got Justin Jefferson on the board. You have Justin Jefferson on the board, and you take the guy who's Deshaun Jackson 2.0. Deshaun Jackson's another one I can't find on the field. You cannot.
Alshon Jeffrey finally showed up too. Who knew? He's been hurt, though. He's been hurt.
But these are Howie Roseman decisions. Justin Jefferson's on the board. Okay, he was in a loaded LSU offense. What do you have? Over 100 catches, 1,300 yards, like almost 10 plus touchdowns. Those doesn't lie when you're playing top ranked teams. The other thing is about him is that what you're not doing for Carson, that you're doing for other people, is you're not recycling your team. You're not recycling your players when your players are like Deshaun, like Alshon, right? Look at the other team in Pennsylvania. Look at the Steelers. Big Ben, his entire career, Mike Wallace, Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes, right? They keep, as an organization, they keep refreshing. As Big Ben ages and it continues to be a great quarterback, they're just evolving that. The Packers are doing it too. What's Philadelphia doing? Oh, we can keep Alshon for one more year. He's not the bum that everyone thinks he is. No, he's a bum. So instead of drafting Jalen Hurts, in the second round, why didn't you get another receiver? First of all, you shouldn't have. Jalen Reagor might still pan out. Why didn't you take another receiver?
Well, remember this. We talked about it last week. We listed off of 6 wide receivers that were taken. Jalen Reagor, if anyone didn't know, he was like the 9th or 10th best receiver in that class, and he was drafted 4th, if I'm not mistaken. We listed off, I think it was 4th. Yeah, because the big 3, Ruggs, Judy, and Lamb. Then it was Reagor. But look, Justin Jefferson, he mentioned. Michael Pittman Jr. at Indianapolis, kid out of USC, absolute baller. Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame, look where he's now at in Pittsburgh, as he mentioned. You have Brandon Ayuk out of San Francisco making an impact there right away. And Brandon Ayuk is
Playing
literally the
well.
exact same player as Jalen Reagor was in college. So there's different components here that the list goes on. There was I can't even tell you off the top of my head.
Let me say one more
so
thing
many.
about that, though. Let me say one more thing about that. Let's go back to the year prior to that. So I was watching the tape on JJ Arcega-Whiteside, and you liked him too. You said he was a big baller, basically Alshon Jeff. I know you said it. You said he's basically
I did. I loved him out of college, but he was more of a tight end, not a wide receiver.
Right. It's basically what Alshon is. Alshon can't run around to save his life. So my thing is, you have a guy like DK Metcalf. You passed on not once but twice. He's a freak of a human specimen. And you take the guy who needs a position change.
Yeah.
Again,
enough said. Everyone in the league though passed on DK Metcalf, so everyone gets thrown into the.
I think if Carson gets moved, it's because of the downfall of his own franchise. He should be looked at as the golden boy. Not that he can't do no wrong, because he obviously does. But
do you think he has the right to pout?
Yes.
He's out there pouting.
I think he has the right to pout. They don't win the Super Bowl without him. Let's be real. 11-2 before they got hurt during that Rams game.
Yeah, 11-2, 11-3, somewhere around there.
You don't get the bye. You don't do all that without Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has shown that he's MVP caliber, but you're not loading the talent around him. That's his own. Hypothetically speaking, you're a franchise that's shooting yourself in the foot. You drafted another quarterback in the second round. Green Bay did the same thing. Why did you not get why did you not get Aaron Rodgers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild. Makes no sense.
Just another receiver.
Yeah.
If Hurts plays great down the stretch, trade him, get picks. You don't want to win this division anyway. You're going to get a first round bounce. Keep pushing. But did you want me to continue talking about Carson Wentz, kind of the strain, the mentality?
I was going to ask you, how do you think this is affecting him mentally at the moment? With your background in this kind of field, so how would you counsel him right now? That would be a great question. How would you counsel him?
I look at it as a few different ways, right? So I look at it in terms of goal setting. Goal setting is a big thing in sports psychology, and like what your expectations are, right? So I honestly think Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, to my knowledge, have a great relationship, and I think Doug is instilling these expectations for him that are kind of high. I don't even think it's Carson Wentz instilling those expectations anymore, because we see it here. Is he really throwing for 4,000 yards and 35, 36 touchdowns with a makeshift offensive line and dud that receiver? Your best receiver is Dallas Goedert, and Zach Ertz just came back last week. Your two best receivers are tight ends. You're not going down the field. You're doing crossing routes and I think that part, the expectation on him is weighing on him. That's why he does a lot. That's why he's doing too much. Nobody's getting open. Nobody's doing nothing. I mean, sure, Jalen Hurts has his legs and can run more. Does that make him a better quarterback? Absolutely not. We're talking about the quarterback position, not his athleticism. The other thing I think the owner is saving him from this, is his own injuries. I think Carson Wentz, kind of similar to what they did with what Washington did with RG3. I will always use that as an example. They rushed him back too soon. He was never the same. I know, it's sad. But I think Jeffrey Lurie is doing his team a service. You're paying this man a lot of money, as you should be. He is worth every penny of it. Maybe not this season, sure. But you have nothing to play for right now. Evaluate the rest of your team and let Carson get healthy. Let him have another 6 months or so, right, to get his legs back, to get into prime shape. And I think that's what Carson needs right now. I think the team as a whole needs to treat him better in terms of who they're allowing, who's available, bring in free agents, draft better. I think Carson Wentz knows in a way that his team's holding back. If I was him, I would be very upset of a quarterback controversy. And that's what, if I was counseling him, that's what I would want to talk about. like the elephant in the room is you potentially may lose we don't know, but you potentially might lose your job to Jalen Hurts. I personally think it would be for all the wrong reasons. Philadelphia, the city itself is brutal. This is something similar to like Kevin Cobb and Michael Vick, right? Like there was a little bit of, Kevin Cobb started the season, Kevin Cobb got hurt, Michael Vick went in and tore it up, right? But there wasn't a lot of sample of Kevin Cobb. There was of Mike Vick, so but that's where Carson Wentz wins.
Mhm.
I think this is more about a franchise rehabilitation more than it is with Carson Wentz's expectations. The franchise as a whole needs to treat themselves better and function properly, and their players. Fletcher Cox, stud defensive tackle, came out and said Carson's our guy. I believe it was Fletcher Cox, was very adamant on, I think it was Twitter and Instagram, saying like, no, he's our guy.
Mhm.
Jalen Hurts doesn't own that locker room by any means. It's Carson's job to lose, and Philadelphia right now makes it seem like they want him to lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's transition now to another little sports topic here. I think everyone anyone can agree with me that it's right now, it's Kansas City, and then there's everyone else. And I'm pretty sure the gap right now is, especially we thought Pittsburgh may be actually closer than people thought, and now Pittsburgh's lost 2 in a row. So Pittsburgh's way off of that gap more than people think. I think
Inconsistent.
there's definitely a significant gap between Kansas City and everyone else. So Anthony, I want to get your take. Who is the biggest team? Who has the best chance to derail the Kansas City Chiefs? Because personally, for me, if they get to the Super Bowl, it's over. I think nobody will beat them from the NFC. So I think a team from the AFC has to beat them before they get to the Super Bowl to have any chance.
So, we talked about this with a little bit of prep, but, if we're talking about who's going to win basically off the conference, it has to be the Buffalo Bills. The Steelers have been very inconsistent, like you said, right? Like even when they won their 11th straight, they were missing possessions. They looked off in their tempo. But you have to give the Buffalo Bills credit what they're doing. They're essentially in this weird complex. They're essentially what Kansas City is with a better defense. Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, cannon rocket arms, probably 1A and 1B in the league.
Arm wise,
yeah, arm talent,
absolutely.
arm like strength wise, yes. And they're basically doing the same thing. Very minimal running game. I know Kansas City has their rookie. They have Le'Veon Bell now. We all know Le'Veon Bell does well in the passing game too. So let's not get cute here and say he's an all-time leading rusher. But Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, not only do they sling the ball downfield, but they move their feet. Josh Allen is playing incredible football right now. One of the probably top 5 quarterback right now. And the addition of Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen had a great season last year, but with the addition of Stephon Diggs, I think Dixon, their tight end, kind of stepping up. And that back defense is just playing incredible. They're going to be the team to possibly beat Kansas City. I think I probably like Buffalo more just because I think their defense is more sound. I think Sean McDermott's a great defensive-minded coach. Again, was with Philadelphia for a little bit. But I think he knows what he's doing. Listen, I love Andy Reid too. Don't get me wrong. I was rooting for Big Red in the Super Bowl. But it's going to be Buffalo.
I agree with everything you just said. I think one name that you forgot to mention, Leslie Frazier. He's also a former head coach. He coached Minnesota.
You're right.
He's the D coordinator there too. And
Yep.
Offensive coordinator Brian Dable, if he doesn't have a head coaching job next season, there's something wrong. Same thing with Eric Bieniemy out in Kansas City.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Those two guys are in a class of their own right now, scheming for plays for their best players to be the best players on the field. So with Diggs, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, etc. But I'm going to throw you a little bit of a sleeper. This is like my Hail Mary dark horse kind of thing. Because right now they're supposed to play each other, the Bills, and the team is the Colts. Why the Colts? I've mentioned this on my podcast earlier that I do like the Colts. Yes, the issue is Phillip Rivers. It's not even a question. Can he not turn the ball over? But this is it. This is the other formula. If you're not going to be like Kansas City, you make sure Kansas City does not touch the ball more than 5 times throughout the entire game. So you have a absolute stud in Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. You hand him the ball 3 times, and if you average 3 yards a carry, that gets you to 4th and 1, and then you hand it off to him again on 4th and 1. There is no such thing as a punt. All right, there's going to be.
My only problem with
hold on.
Go on.
And then lastly, Indianapolis has the athletes on defense that can match up with the Kansas City offense. You have Darius Leonard at linebacker who can easily match up with Travis Kelce versatility-wise. You've got an absolute stud in DeForest Buckner that they got in that trade with San Francisco that people do not really recognize, and he is the one reason why they're able to stop the run and one of the best teams in run defense, forcing Patrick Mahomes to play. And the thing that Patrick Mahomes struggles is when you only rush 3 and you drop 8. Because he's holding the ball for a while. Yes, he's going to end up beating you. There's no stopping Patrick Mahomes. If you can hold them to 30 points, you've got a chance of winning the game. So, I mean, I think Indianapolis has the recipe. You keep the ball out of their hands, you drop deep, you play coverage, and you force them to work their way down the field, and you hold them into field goals and touchdowns in the red zone.
My thing about that is, like, yes, we all know Phillip Rivers is he's not their worst weakness. He is their worst weakness, but he's not that much of a weakness, right? Like, Phillip Rivers is still Phillip Rivers, capable, right?
It's just the turnovers.
Right. So I'm gonna go with kind of the flip of what you said. You're saying that the Colts front 7, they could stop Kansas City run. You better hope to God they can win a shootout. Like, the Colts are going to have to win a shootout. You're talking about Jonathan Taylor, but the Chiefs front interior linemen, they're not that bad at stopping the run. I'm not saying they're like a top 5 defense, but, like, who's there? Chris Jones?
Chris Jones is there. Yeah, he's a star.
Right. They have some big guys up there that can stop the run. So, I think it's
my
a good
curveball. Buffalo's my front runner as well. I just wanted to throw out another team.
I think those are two great picks.
And I know you mentioned in our little prep that because I'm a huge advocate, if they get to the Super Bowl, it's a wrap. But I know you had an NFC team that you believe has an opportunity.
So, look, a lot of people are saying the Saints. Drew Brees isn't there. Like, he has to kind of rekindle his chemistry, after being out with the rib injury.
Rib injury and punctured lung.
That's big. You could sit him all you want, but you might not get that first round bye, right? So I'm going to take the baddest man in football on the other side. I'm taking Aaron Rodgers. That's my MVP. Do I love Matt LaFleur? No, but he's doing some great things with that great team over there. Again, and this just goes back to, you're not going to stop Patrick Mahomes. You just hope to contain him. Exactly. Can Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers and that defense stop Pat Mahomes? I think it would be a very close shootout. That's what it would be. It would be like a 40-37 something, high scoring, high powered. Aaron Jones would probably run for 150, but probably get 150 receiving, something ridiculous. It'd be something ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I don't mind the Aaron Rodgers pick. I just think when Kansas City gets there, it's just going to be there's going to be no opportunity for anyone to try and match them. Especially Andy Reid is lethal off of a bye, and you're guaranteed a week off going into the Super Bowl. So
Andy Reid knows what's up. I know.
Yeah, so I think we both have 2 teams there. Mine are a little bit the Buffalo Bills. We both have Buffalo, so we're both on the same page there. And then I've got one that's way out of left field, and he's got an NFC team. So we'll see. So now we have the current playoff picture going on. Yeah, it's the 7 teams now, not just the 6. There's only 1 team getting the bye. Anthony, is there a couple teams that you think that are on the outside now that are going to end up getting into the playoffs? Because right now you have Miami holding on to a playoff spot, and you have Arizona as the 2 7 seeds in each conference.
So with the AFC, right? So, Ravens just came off this win, very close win. I'm not sold. Lamar Jackson, MVP caliber, we've seen it time and time again. he's starting to become that like 1.5, 2 trick pony, right? The offense isn't scheming. I don't love it. I think they stay put. I don't think they make the playoffs. I think the AFC is so competitive, but and I know you don't like them, but the Raiders. I love what I'm seeing out of John Gruden. Um, I love the football I'm liking over with Derek Carr. Yeah, Derek Carr is a new life. Go Fresno. Uh-huh. I'm taking the Raiders to slide in there.
I mean, I can't. I ranted about the Raiders last week. They are the definition of fool's gold, damn it. Fool's gold. They gave you all the hype in the world with that Kansas City victory. And then you go out there and then you lay eggs. You get dominated one week. And then if Greg Williams is not a complete insane blitzing psychopath, they lose to the Jets. And the Jets are worse than the 0-16 Lions. I'll tell you that right now.
Any given Sunday, man.
I cannot. The Raiders are not going to get in. It's going to be too hard, I think, because everyone holds the tiebreaker against them. And Miami's going to slip up because they still got to play Buffalo and New England still. I think they're going to at least lose one more time. That'll put them at 10-6. And the Baltimore Ravens are playing nobody down the stretch. They are running the table, 11-5. Greg Roman finally ate his own words about trying to make Lamar a pocket quarterback. And on Monday Night Football, they let Lamar be the best player on the field, the best athlete on the field, and they just let him cook. That's all you have to do. Yes, you have the potential for injury every time he runs the football. Absolutely. But it doesn't matter because it comes back to RG3. But the only way that Baltimore is successful is when they run the ball and you let Lamar Jackson be the MVP / Heisman Trophy quarterback that he is. Just let that man be great. I keep saying this. And Greg Roman, he will never probably listen to this, but when he eventually does, let Lamar be great. I'm on the Ravens. They play the Giants. I think they've got another. They play Jacksonville this week. They got another, and then I think they play Cincinnati. Like, come on.
All right.
It's 3 games. Give me that. And then
right.
For the NFC, I mean, I don't think Arizona will honestly lose the spot, to be honest. But if I had to throw a team out there, I know we were talking about it. I think you're right. Minnesota Vikings. I think this week, Minnesota and Chicago play this week. Those are the 2 teams on the outside looking at. You're going to learn whoever wins that matchup is going to have the chance. So
we'll learn who's who. I mean, of course, we know Chicago has a better defense, but Kirk Cousins and the gang have a much better offense. I mean,
they should have won last week.
Dalvin Cook.
Dan Bailey learns how to kick a field goal again.
Well, of course. But I mean, both of these teams are frauds, right? Like we talked about it a little bit before. Like there's 3 NFC North teams dancing to get in. None of them are going to make it far, even if they do get in. I agree with you. I think the Cardinals keep to that spot. I'll talk a little bit about them later, but I do like the Cardinals. There is one team, they're not in the bubble, but since this division is so bad, I do need to bring them up because you never know what happens. I am so hyped for your Washington football team because
in the division, baby.
I will talk about them again a little bit later, but there's something about that front 7 defense, you know, the exciting story about Alex Smith coming back from injury and Ron Rivera and a lot of change in that organization. I could see them winning the division and maybe even getting an upset.
I would love that as a fan. Love it. And we know damn well that if we end up making the playoffs, we're going to be the Washington football team for the next 3 years, baby. We won't have a name anytime soon if we end up making the playoffs. But it's also college football. We have a huge slate this weekend. It's the conference championship games. You have Alabama, Florida, Notre Dame, Clemson, Part 2. You have Ohio State, Northwestern. You have Cincinnati versus Tulsa. These are just Iowa State, Oklahoma. These are the teams that still have an opportunity to potentially make the college football playoffs. Some have better chances than others, but still. And the most surprising thing that definitely came out from Tuesday's college football playoff rankings is that the Florida Gators could throw a shoe against probably one of the worst teams that I've seen in the SEC in a while, and the LSU Tigers barely had enough players to play. Then they were down, had 5 players injured. The guy throws a shoe and leads to a 58-yard field goal for the Tigers to beat them, and Florida still only drops 1 spot. It made absolutely no sense to me. From 6 to 7, and you lose to an LSU team that has been absolutely horrible this year. I mean, they're coming off of a national championship, so I can't really say anything else.
But they should have dropped more.
Yeah,
Florida should have dropped more.
absolutely. I just want to, for me, of course, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so my eyes will definitely be on that Notre Dame Clemson game. And I know you're an Oklahoma guy, so I know you'll be watching the Oklahoma Iowa State game. What are the games that have got you intrigued this weekend?
So I have a few, right? I just wanted to touch briefly on Alabama, Florida. Actually, Florida is, like we said, right? They should have been dropped. They probably shouldn't, maybe not in this spot, but I'm actually interested to see how Mac Jones plays. I think he's been playing some high quality football, doing everything right, not really turning the football over. But he's just doing things well. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the nation right now. Of course, they're winning games. They're number 1, but there's a lot of tremendous growth there. I would love to see how he plays. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a little bit of a sneaky Heisman. This is a Heisman battle this week too, between Jones and Kyle Trask. But there is one name, Devontae Smith, the wide receiver out of Alabama. If he somehow is a crazy massive game like he did these past couple weeks, he could easily become that dark horse to be a Heisman Trophy winner and be the first one that's outside of a quarterback and running back in a very long time. So watch out for Devontae Smith. Florida's defense has showed me nothing that Alabama's going to lose this game. I think I'm going to be more intrigued whether or not Florida is going to, how competitive Florida will be. We know
Sure.
Kyle Trask is elite. Kyle Pitts, the tight end, he's also elite. He's going to be a first round draft pick without a doubt. So I think it's going to come down to the 2 offenses to see who's going to be. It's going to be, hopefully it'll be a high scoring game. I do believe that. And Alabama's getting like 17 or something. So that's going to be a good marker to whether see how much of a gap there really is in the SEC between Alabama and everyone else. So transitioning now, we're going to talk about Oklahoma, Iowa State. I know you're a big Boomer Sooner. We've talked about the Sooners a little bit already, but I think this is a real statement game for the Oklahoma. They're a very young team. They finally caught fire. Spencer Rattler, after being benched in that first half of the Texas game, has not been nothing short of sensational. Iowa State's playing in their first ever Big 12 championship game. I mean, they've been absolutely a huge surprise in the Big 12. Breece Hall, hands down, the top 3 running back in the country right now. He's going to have a monster game, I believe. What do you expect to see out of this one?
Well, we all know those teams don't play defense. We all know it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Oh yeah,
we
defense
know
is optional.
we know it's going to be a lot of yards, right? And Iowa State has a good quarterback, Brock Purdy, 17-6 touchdown interception ratio, playing really good football. Breece Hall has almost 1,400 yards on the ground, right? Getting in the end zone a few times. But you said it before, Spencer Rattler, since the benching, has been remarkable, right? So on the season, he had about 2,500 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Guy's just playing unreal. And I think it gives a lot of credit to Lincoln Riley, having faith in all of his quarterbacks. We see it time and time again, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Spencer Rattler. I think it comes down to, does Lincoln Riley let Spencer Rattler do what he does and just plays that good, backyard football, just get in the end zone however you need to do it? Or is he going to put the chain on him? Is he going to, hold him in there? Is he going to kind of coach him a little bit? No. I think you let Spencer Rattler do what he does best. He's a young guy. I think redshirt freshman.
Yeah, redshirt freshman. He's a true sophomore.
Yeah.
Around there.
Super young guy, right? Early mistakes, we get that, but I see Oklahoma taking this game. I think Spencer Rattler has a big day, really shows his potential in college football and potentially in the pros. Think the big win for them.
Yeah, and then the last game we were going to just mention briefly, Notre Dame Clemson. It's the rematch. Notre Dame ended up winning in double overtime. Remember, Trevor Lawrence did not play, so this is a real test again for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's still being doubted, and if Notre Dame gets blown out here, they will not be in the college football playoff. I will tell you that right now, because that game against Clemson will be completely null and void if they get absolutely blown out. And I'm a diehard Notre Dame fan. If you guys don't know already, I just need to see be competitive into the fourth quarter, and you will be in the top four. Would I love for us to kick Clemson's butt out of the playoff? Absolutely, and freaking beat them twice this year and show something that we're actually really good and we have a legitimate chance to win the national championship. But that's all I want to see is Ian Book. Can we stop Travis Etienne a second time? We held him to 30 yards in the first matchup. He was non-existent. We had a defensive touchdown because of an Etienne fumble. So how much of an impact is Trevor Lawrence actually going to be on the field? It's going to be the real question, and see if we're going to be a real contender this year.
Definitely. I think so.
Yeah. So last thing I want to mention go back to a mental health question here for you, Ant.
Sure.
So we've had a lot of college football teams already opt out of playing in the bowl season this year. A lot of the reasons have been the players have just decided they're mentally and emotionally and physically drained, and they're done. They're not in contention for a conference championship or playing in a significant bowl game or playing for the national title. What do you think that these players have had to go through this year? And I think this has really showcased that collegiate athletes are more, especially college football players and college basketball players are more than just student athletes this year too.
Yeah, I think it very much humanizes who they are. We look at these college athletes as if they're college, athlete stars or prominent role players, or they're going to be professionals, right? And we keep them to that expectation. But I think if this is showing us one thing, it very humanizes the roles we play in our lives. And I think that's important. But at the same time, I can't fault those teams for opting out. We've been in this for roughly 9 months now. And like I mentioned earlier about expectation, right? You're not competing. You're competing for a major bowl, or lack of a major bowl, right? Like if you're opting out, but it's to the point, right, where like you reach your point, and like if you make a team decision to opt out, I know individual players have too, but if you made a team decision to opt out, that's best, because like I said, all this pressure, it's hard. Some of these people are 18, 19, 20 years old, and we have a lot of people age ranges struggling with this, like let alone being a student athlete, right? Just as a human, we're all struggling with this. I think it's appropriate to opt out. I understand as a fan of college football, hey, you're losing out on a bowl, or there's an automatic winner, however they decide to do that, right?
Yeah.
I get it, but you know what? We also had an abbreviated season here. The NFL season continues to be shifting. Baseball was abbreviated. You know what? It's a blessing that we are able to continue doing sports during this matter. Take it for what it is. Let's continue working as a team here to get past this, so we can revitalize not only us as humans, but the athletics and those things to their fullest potential.
Absolutely. I think these teams have just realized that. I don't think we've really understand how much these student athletes, these coaches what they've really gone through for them to go out there and play, getting tested regularly, being able to have to go to different workouts. You're self-quarantining yourself basically on campus. You're going to either class, you're doing class remote, and then you're just going to your athletic facility. that's it. You're not doing really there's no social engagement whatsoever. You're making sure that you're following protocols, etc. So it's definitely a unique situation that everyone is going through. So, and I commend these players I think that they've reached a threshold, and they're ready to go home, be with their families for a little bit, and just just kind of just let this semester and season be over. So
Just
kudos to all
unwind,
them.
unwind, just get that sort of, yeah.
Yeah, just to leave that stress off their shoulders. So now we're going to transition to our final
Yeah,
segment of the
definitely.
day, to my sports betting following. You already know what time it is. It is lock it in. It is my 3 college football picks and my 3 NFL locks for the weekend. Anthony has done the due diligence for himself to have his own picks. So we're going to be very competitive this weekend to see who has the better record. So how this works is that I'm going to go, Anthony, you'll go, vice versa, back and forth. All right. So for my first college football pick, I have the Texas A&M Aggies minus 13.5 versus the Tennessee Volunteers. Why? Well, Texas A&M is right now the odd team looking out. They are number 5 in the college football rankings. They have to showcase the ability and be dominant this weekend to give them the credibility if any of these teams slip up out of the top 4, to put them in over a potential Big 12 champion like an Iowa State, or a potentially an Oklahoma, or a potentially Cincinnati if they win the American championship. So Texas A&M, they've got a very good coach in Jimbo Fisher. They've got a solid senior quarterback in Kellen Mond. They need to be dominant against a very poor Tennessee team. So Texas A&M minus 13.5 is my first lock.
So my first lock, I'm looking at the Michigan State versus Maryland game. Neither team is playing remarkable football whatsoever, and I think it actually works to the advantage of the excitement of the game, right? Kind of like 2 mediocre teams playing kind of makes a great game. But we have Michigan State plus 2.5. I'm locking in the over. I think Michigan State wins by at least 3, maybe even a touchdown. I think both sides are playing just poor football. I mean, I just have a feeling about Michigan State, but also Michigan State posts a overall 9-2 record against Maryland, so I'm choosing that favorite as well.
I like it. A little upset there early. Upset there. My next pick is Missouri -1 versus Mississippi State. Missouri coming off of a little bit of a tough loss against Georgia after finally getting themselves into the college football rankings at 24th in the country, slipping up against the Georgia Bulldogs with them hosting them at home. They do have a very good quarterback in Connor Bailzak. He knows how to throw the football all over the lot. They've got a solid running back in Roundtree that knows how to run the football. And Mississippi State, the air raid has been an absolute bust this year in the SEC. Mike Leach, I don't even think he's figured out who he's going to play at quarterback yet this week. So that's just a situation in and itself. Give me Missouri -1 on the road.
So the next game I'm looking at is Nebraska versus Rutgers. So it's a little bit of a hometown feeling. I'm from Jersey, right? You know, Rutgers is like the team in the state, I suppose, right? And I mean, go Hall, but still. Nebraska is 6th in Big Ten West, while Rutgers is 4th in Big Ten East. The margin is Rutgers -5.5. I think it's going to be a smaller margin of victory. I see it being a 2 to 3 point game. But it's not really about the players of this game. It's more so about the pride and the energy, right? So this is a big stage for the new and improved Rutgers under, the return of Greg Schiano. I think they're a little bit better just by having Greg Schiano there, and I think this is a staple win for them, whether or not it's a large margin of victory or not. Lock it in; they're going to win. I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 point. But in addition to that, Scott Frost's squad is very one-dimensional. They're not doing what they need to be doing. I think Rutgers has a good shot here.
Yeah, I like that as well. Nebraska's been a huge hit or miss. They haven't figured out who they play at quarterback either on a week-to-week basis. They got their own quarterback rotation going. But so I like that one. Lastly, I'm gonna actually pick one of the American Championship game here. I think Cincinnati will end up winning, but Cincinnati really needs to be a convincing victory for them to make that significant jump, and they need help, of course. But I'm actually gonna take Tulsa to cover the 14.5 points. The Golden Hurricane, I've covered a couple of their games this season for Underdog Dynasty as they played East Carolina, where they should have lost that game if there weren't some botched calls. But Tulsa has a legitimate defense. They have the American Defensive Player of the Year in Zaven Collins. He's an absolute freak of nature playing linebacker for them, as well as they have a graduate transfer quarterback from Baylor and Zach Smith. He's got all the arm talent in the world. His issue is, again, turnovers. If he can limit some turnovers, And Tulsa's defense is that good to hang around and only lose by less than 14 points. I like Tulsa there, plus 14.5 is my final college football lock.
Okay, my final, we talked about this game earlier, Oklahoma versus Iowa State. Had to take it. Go Sooners. I talked about the stats before. Yeah, right. This one dear to my heart. We talked about Brock Purdy and Breece Hall playing great football for Iowa State. But if Lincoln Riley and Spencer Rattler can get this game right, I think they pull out the win. It's minus 5.5. I think it's a 2 to 3 point game. Like I said about Nebraska and Rutgers, I think it's a closer game. But I think Spencer Rattler gets it right. I think he shows he's a dominant quarterback in college football. And who knows? We'll see.
All right. Solid pick there, too. So I think you're taking Iowa State there on the spread, or are you taking Oklahoma on the spread?
I'm taking Oklahoma.
Okay.
I'm taking Oklahoma. Oklahoma's minus 5.5. Oh, no, actually, yeah.
All right. Oklahoma by a touchdown. That's what he's going to go with.
I'm thinking about. I think I'm going to do that. Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
There we go. It's all right. It's all right. I know you're new to this. This is a little out of your repertoire.
You know me in sports betting.
we if you ever want to listen to a sports betting story, we have one to tell you. We're not going to talk about it today though, because it's still dear to our hearts.
Another podcast will do
Another podcast. We can just rant about that for an hour. But for the NFL, for my first lock, I've got San Francisco minus 2.5 versus Dallas. Yes, San Francisco's coming off of a loss to Washington. Dallas played Cincinnati. Cincinnati's now a bye basically for any team with Brandon Allen out there at quarterback. I like the 49ers. I really do, especially with Kyle Shanahan knows how to game plan well. And Dallas really struggles to stop anyone defensively. So give me the Niners there minus 2.5.
Another game we talked about earlier, or potential game, Chiefs versus Saints. It's Chiefs minus 3.
Absurd.
Chiefs win by at least a touchdown. The Saints team
that's
is banged
that
up.
one's simple enough, honestly, because I have Kansas City as well as one of my locks. So that's our big lock right there.
Yeah,
that's our major lock. Kansas City minus 3.
So Saints are banged up all across the offensive line, all across the defensive line. Philadelphia came out with the win last week. I mean, against Taysom Hill, who we've seen time and time again. I mean, no, Pat Mahomes is going to do Pat Mahomes things. He's gonna take advantage of a weaker offense and a weaker defense for the Saints. Lock the Chiefs in.
I love it. I'm gonna lock that one too. So Anthony, back to you for your second pick. That was my second lock as well.
So I'm looking at Eagles versus Cardinals, right? So Eagles. Great, Jalen Hurts. I'm so glad you got that first win. You have that confidence. Yeah, but the Cardinals are going to win. Cardinals are favored by 6.
Yes.
They're playing to keep their spot in the playoffs. We talked about it before. I don't see Cliff
Kingsbury
taking his foot off the gas. DeAndre Hopkins is going to do bad things to that weak Philadelphia secondary. Larry Fitzgerald's still that leadership role, and Christian Kirk, man, he's coming into his own. I really think they have a high-powered offense, and I take the Cardinals to win and cover that. It might be a 2-score game.
I like it. My final one is going to be Cleveland minus 4.5 versus the New York Giants. Yes, Cleveland's on a short week. They ended up taking that heartbreaking loss to Baltimore with Lamar Jackson allegedly cramping or pooping, depending on the person you ask.
Who knows?
Who knows? We will never know. But came down, again, taking that heartbreaking loss. I think we learned a lot more about Cleveland than people actually realized, that they're actually going to be a very tough out this year in the playoffs. And I think Cleveland, I mean, from what I've heard, Daniel Jones is now dealing with another lower leg injury on top of his hamstring that he's trying to recover from. They haven't released official what lower part of his leg is injured. There's a very high chance he will not play, which puts Colt McCoy in the fray. Give me Cleveland minus 4.5, especially with Cleveland trying to lock up a playoff spot this week. Give me the Browns.
Like that a lot. Baker's my guy. Sooner Nation, Sooners. Of course. Yeah, another jersey. I got another Baker Mayfield jersey. I'm with that one. But I'm looking at the Seattle versus Washington game. Seattle's favored Seattle favored -5.5. I'm taking Washington to upset. I know Antonio Gibson is
Doubtful.
doubtful, sure, and Alex Smith is questionable, right? But Seattle's imploding. Let's look at it for what it is. Russell Wilson was the leader in the MVP as the MVP for what, the first like 6 weeks or something, like.
Yeah.
And they just keep getting this loss and that bad loss and this and this. Their secondary's also still hurt, right? They're hurt across the board, and it's not like Washington doesn't have weapons. Yeah, you're not sure who's playing quarterback right now. You're not sure who's playing running back, but I think Washington has the potential for the upset here, especially if Seattle can't get the ball going early. Washington has a phenomenal front seven. Blaine, we talk about this week in and week out. Montez Sweat, Ryan Kerrigan, big guys there, know how to get to the quarterback.
Nothing short of elite on the defensive side.
Think it really limits Russell Wilson's mobility. I like Washington in that game.
Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Give me that. Because I need that little Washington dub, a little Giants loss this weekend. And I think that almost means the division is over.
Don't worry about it. Philadelphia will be back there next year. Don't worry about it, Blaine.
Oh
you can have your moment this year.
Yeah, because if Washington wins, you might as well lock in any of the other 3 teams because we never have repeat champions in our division.
Absolutely.
The NFC Least, baby. Well, Anthony, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day today to come on to the podcast. It was much appreciated. Thanks for coming on.
Of course, Blaine. Happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I look forward to the next.
Absolutely,
go around.
Definitely got to do it again soon. So maybe we'll add. Maybe you and Pass will both be on. You guys can just go at it for a little while next time.
I think we also need to let the fans know about our bet.
Which one?
The one that we lost, which is why I don't bet any longer. The basketball one.
You want to talk about that right now and rant? Or do you want to, or do we push that back to when we have Paps on next time?
Let's push it. We can all get upset together.
Yeah. So like, hey, next time, Anthony, we'll have Joey Paps on too. He was my first guest on the podcast this year. We'll talk about our sports betting debacles. But that wraps us up for another edition of Final Whistle. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay tuned for some special episodes coming your way next week. Have a great day. I didn't stop.